Call the meeting to
All right.
order. This is the Gbha Housing Authority meeting for Thursday, November 19th. It's a little after 10:30. I think we've got quorum here based on who's on the call. Another video Zoom meeting. So we've got roll call. So let's go to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the November 19th, 2020 meeting of the Gbha Housing Authority?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Looks like Eric. All right, so the motion and a second. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item D, approval of the minutes from the October 15th, 2020 meeting of the Gbha Housing Authority. Are there any additions? Motion to approve. We have a motion to approve. I will second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, motion is approved. Item E, regular business. Consideration of possible action on approval of a housing study. Cheryl, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Yep. So I'm sure you all read through the housing study in its entirety. I still haven't actually gotten through it completely.
I started at the back and I'm working my way forward.
Yep. I did send you the video. If you had a chance to watch it, great. If you don't, watch it at some point. It just kind of gives you the highlights of the housing study. So what we did was we hired MSA to do a housing market study for Green Bay and a little bit of the surrounding areas and for comparative purposes. And I'll give you some highlights that we found in the study. So the way that we worked it was we had an internal team that gathered data and supplied that to the contractor. We also did a survey that went out. We had a lot of responses, which was good. And we also did focus groups. So we had a lot of input into the housing markets from all across the board and people giving input. So some of the key findings that they found out was that the growth in Green Bay for the next 20 years is projected to slow down, really not increase, which was interesting. But the region around us is looking to accelerate. So if Green Bay is smart about providing additional housing units in our area, we can capture some of that growth into Green Bay. So I guess housing can be used as an attractor to the city of Green Bay. They would shift those projections. 70% of the city's workforce lives outside of the city, which is, I guess that's when I try to wrap my arms around that number, that's a pretty big number, but it also is an indicator of the fact that we need more housing in Green Bay, right? We have older housing stock, 58% of owner-occupied and 40% of renter-occupied units were built before 1969. I know. So Green Bay is an older city.
It is. That surprised me. So, yeah.
And that's right. Because I live in Astor, where the house is over 100 years here. But I guess when you think about it, the new stuff is really the Far East side.
Sure.
But that does pose problems when you've got older housing stock and the ability to market that. Overall, there's a lack of. Now, this surprised me. Overall, there's a lack of higher-end units in the city. So, and because what's happening when we don't have the high-end rentals, people who can afford the high-end rentals aren't renting there, right? They can't find it. So they're taking up those lower-level rentals, which is bringing, it's bringing everything down, which makes less units available. So when you hear people grouse about, well, here's another project of market rents, that's good. That's okay, because we need those too. It helps the whole system.
But Cheryl, that surprised me because I can't imagine we not having, the housing that's going up now is incredibly expensive for apartment, rental. For the majority of the people that I work for, but even for people that retire and want to go from their house to an apartment, it's extremely expensive, because now they're not making $100,000 a year between the two of them. They're only making $45,000 on their pension or on their 401k and their Social Security. So to me, the housing that's going up now is so expensive that we have two populations that can't afford it, the low income and then those that are aging out of their homes, so.
Right. This is very true, although we have had a number of affordable units come online.
Yes.
The Broadway Lofts and the Firehouse Lofts,
Yes.
which is good.
Yep.
So new construction for affordable housing is extremely expensive because building costs are so expensive right now.
I know.
That you often need a subsidy of some kind to do that affordable housing, whether it's tax
And the
credits.
design fees don't help. I don't.
And design fees are through the roof, as you can say. But, so it's about $136,000 per unit to put something new, and that equates to $1,300 a month in rent. So
Yeah.
that's why you can see that we need to look at, to get affordable, we need to subsidize it in some manner.
Right.
Over the next 20 years, 15,000 residents in Green Bay will age into their 80s. So our population is aging, which of course is going to increase our need for senior housing, and particularly senior housing located in neighborhoods that are existing. So there's a lot of us, I'm not close to 80, my mom is, but at some point I'm going to want to move out of this big house and move somewhere, but I don't want to move out to the burbs, I want to stay in my neighborhoods somewhere. So there's that need to create that kind of housing located in the neighborhoods downtown, I think.
And this was something, Cheryl, that I didn't get through all the disability stuff, but not only do they need housing, they need senior housing that's accessible.
Yeah.
Because the senior housing that's out there, and when they started building all behind Red Cross, the Highlands, I mean, if they did 4 units with barrier-free showers, that was it.
Right.
Why aren't we making them all walk-ins?
Right.
Why? That is something, because then they'll age in place in that apartment versus all of a sudden having to leave it because they can't take a bath or a shower anymore because it's too unsafe, or they fall as a result.
Right.
So, and I think that helps, again, both of our populations, our aging and our populations with disabilities, is we don't have the housing that's out there to accommodate that need.
Right
So,
now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, from a housing perspective, sure. I don't know whether or not what that has to do with us as an authority. I'm not entirely sure. However, there's an infrastructure problem for what you're suggesting, though, Cheryl. I mean, like there's no grocery stores to support
Yeah,
the neighborhoods.
you're right.
It goes on and on and on.
There's enough bars, just not enough grocery stores.
Heck
One
yeah.
of the things our consultant emphasized in this housing study was quality of life with regards to neighborhoods. So they made it, that's exactly what they were talking about in this study, is that when you look at housing, you have to look at an entire neighborhood. It's like an ecosystem, right? So you need all kinds of levels of housing throughout the neighborhood, but then you need those services to support that housing, which includes like the grocery. It's kind of like we're making this cycle. When I grew up on Grinnell, there was a little Austin's grocery store on the corner of McCormick and Irwin. There was the Polier Street Market on Polier. Beeble's was up, like there were these little stores that helped the neighborhood, right? And those are all gone now. So I feel like we're cycling back to trying to get to that place again where we have those services downtown. So, but they did talk about that. The quality of life in neighborhoods is really important. And also activating and keeping our neighborhood associations, because the human element, you talk about housing, but you have to have the human element of communication, right? And making sure you're taking care of your neighbors. That was in here as well. 64% of GB students live off campus. That's about 5,100 students, so they're competing. Students generally don't have a lot of money, so they're competing for affordable housing as well. One of the goals should be to help the campuses supply student housing, particular to the campuses. And then just some of the gaps that they laid out, the housing gaps for Green Bay. Annually, we should be putting in 140 to 310 units a year for rentals. And they broke it up, 75 to 170 units would be the kind of the lower end rents, but 15 to 30 of those units should be the higher ends, above $1,500 a month. Same thing with owner-occupied. We should be putting 170 to 380 owner-occupied houses in a year, with, again, varying levels. I can tell you that I looked up the permits. I think we built 120 houses last year in Green Bay, and we were at 60 this year. Part of it, I think, due to COVID, but so we're not close to getting to those numbers we need to really in any of these. So we have a lot of work to do.
Houses, Cheryl, from where, and where is the funding coming from?
60 houses, private market, new construction.
Okay, that's okay.
So, yep.
Sorry for interrupting, what do you do with this document? Like, can you?
Well, I'll tell you, let me just get you one more thing, and I'll tell you what we're doing with it. We're just gonna place it on the shelf and forget it? No, not the right answer.
That's what I would do, like, yeah, well, that's fascinating.
That's great, the other thing they showed, and there's a map in the guide, which shows the number of surface parking lots in downtown. And it's a telling map. Should I get it in here? There's an unbelievable amount of surface parking in downtown Green Bay, and that's all potential space that could be used for housing in some capacity, multifamily, single, whatever, senior, affordable, that we as a city should look at that surface parking.
I want to talk about that just from a sociological aspect. It blows my mind because anytime you talk about developments in downtown, people freak out about parking. And I can't think of another big city on this planet that has as many parking lots and ramps as our downtown. And they seem to get on just fine. You wander into downtown Chicago and you want to do a development, you're going to need 15 acres of parking to support this, or nobody will come to your development. Like, what is wrong with us as peoples that we have that? I don't like it. I straight up don't like it. There's too many parking lots. I mean, if you look at the steering committee plan and the sort of the whole understanding of our downtown and what they described as like the absolute core and center of it, it's a parking lot in the APEC building. It's atrocious. That's our presentation to the world. Socially, it breaks my heart. And that's probably not for Housing Authority agenda meeting notes, but it's wickedly offensive.
So I can tell you that our department has changed some parking regulations in the downtown this year already. So we are on the same goal of lessening the number of spots that are needed for new development downtown. And which leads me to the next part of what we're going to do with this plan. So this plan was commissioned through the Redevelopment Authority. So every month there's an item on the Redevelopment Authority agenda on the update on what's happening with the plan. So part of our plan was an executive summary that had 23 recommendations on it. These have all been, they've all been broken out. So what we've done for our department is we have a number of teams set up within our department, and these goals have been broken up and sent to the team that would best deal with it. So there's a number of them dealing with things like parking, zoning. For example, you see in Green Bay there are houses where there's the primary house in front, and then sometimes there's a smaller house in back.
Yep.
I think someone called them a dodo house.
Or a carriage house, or the caretaker's house, or
mother-in-law house.
Yeah.
So mother-in-law house.
Yeah.
So some things those are allowed in Green Bay. So we need to start rethinking about housing and how it's laid out in that kind of that zoning. Like, do we want to allow those in some capacity? That apartment above the garage, but more of those smaller, because now they make these, there's actually, you can buy them already constructed.
Little pods that you can attach to your house.
Right, yeah. That you can attach
No, they're atrocious looking, and don't do that.
They're atrocious looking from the outside, but I'll tell you, the one we did last year was absolutely beautiful inside. Yep.
I mean, you can have your cake and eat it too, as far as that goes, Sandy.
So our team is looking at all these goals. We're going to get together a strategy. What it's going to turn out to be actually is goals for our department next year on which of these things we're going to start tackling. You know, we are always working on affordable housing projects. In fact, at the last RDA meeting, we allocated some home dollars to 2 projects that are being proposed, one on East Walnut and one on the far west side in partnership with the tribe. So we're always looking for affordable housing options, but there's it's a comprehensive list of things we need to do that includes planning, inspections, affordable housing, market rate housing, incentives. Is there a pool of money we can gather from the bankers in town? There used to be a bankers association many years ago that would pool money together to help for development purposes. You know, we need to start looking at those types of things again. So we are looking at getting that strategy together, hopefully to have that in place for January of next year to start working on these goals.
So, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
I have 2 totally unrelated questions. One is on your executive summary list. You just start pushing to that design review board that we should have had 15 years ago to help solidify. That would be great. Yep, thank you, Stephanie. Cheryl, has Keith Pampern reached out to you recently?
He talked to me maybe 2 months ago about some housing on campus potentially. Yes, but I haven't heard recently.
Okay. Well, they're pushing through some approvals there. I heard it on your red list earlier, so.
Yeah, I think he might have talked about potentially the housing authority maybe being involved with some bonding or some borrowing for them.
Yeah.
I just haven't heard anything follow up on that, but certainly we would want to consider that as a board, I'm thinking, for some housing on campus. Pandemic might have slowed that down a bit, but maybe they're back up to getting things moving.
I think it's probably just because they're architects. Well, okay. Well, I'll follow up with them because I don't know what the capacity for where that falls into a calendar and how much bonding is available, but I know that's been kind of on the list.
Yes, that would need to come to the board for approval. So, yep.
And one of the things that I would like to, I don't know if I can recommend this or just plant the bug in your ear, Cheryl, if what other cities and municipalities have done is when any of their funding or anything goes into new redevelopment, that they incorporate an accessibility component to it, if possible. So whether it's housing that is being rebuilt or redone, making sure doorways are wide, making sure bathrooms are large enough, those types of things in order to incorporate that housing stock to a whole bunch of people that might be interested other than just people that are able-bodied. So.
Yep.
Daryl, are we expecting any contacts from those? There's that big article in the Press Gazette this morning about those 2 housing developments going up, one by NWTC and the other out on the east side. Are we expecting any contacts from them for assistance from the authority?
They have actually, I think both contacted us for assistance from the authority, but we're at the point now where I think the money that we have unrestricted in our account has been designated for Mix and Manor, that boiler and generator. So unfortunately, we don't have that pool of money to get out. I mean, hopefully we can build that up a little bit more so we've got a little bit of flexibility. I always offer the being able to borrow the revenue bonds through the Housing Authority. I always offer that up, but I'm not so sure our rates are great. I mean, I don't know, comparatively speaking, I don't know if it's a good deal or not for those revenue bonds, but I would offer that up.
I think on the revenue bond side, the rates and everything are so low that it probably doesn't make a great deal of difference.
Right.
So, okay, good.
No, that's what I've got. Any comment, like again, Sandy, anybody have any comments or ideas, email them.
Yeah, I think it's huge that the city stipulates some type of visitable or accessible component to every pot of funding that goes out. It could be just making sure that anything that's going has a certain number of units, or that all units are universal, or that's all. Because if this is new stock going up, and it's not, then we're back in the same place that we were, missing the boat of the new stock to make sure that they were accessible.
Right.
That's truly it. If we're gonna actually commit to opening this up and making all these units equally available to everyone, then we've got to start, even if it's in one unit at a time, once we start it, then we have a greater capacity as the years go on, so.
And remember too that the council approved holding some of our kids open to create that affordable housing fund. So within the next 2 years, I think we're going to have a little over $3 million available for affordable housing projects in Green Bay, which will be good, which will be a pool of money that we can use to assist,
Absolutely,
develop.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was a good thing. Yep.
So is there any way for us, when like senior housing goes up, that we can put stipulations on if any funding comes from the city, to make sure that all units are visitable, that there's a barrier-free shower in every apartment versus 5 of them, those types of things? Because most of them have 2 full bathrooms, you know, if they're the 2 bedrooms, and they both have tub shower units in them, or they have those skinny walk-in ones that you can't get in if you're in need of a walker or in need of assistance. Plus, they're usually about 5 to 6 inch lips going into them that they have to try, the dam heights, try to walk over them. So, I mean, if we're looking at increasing the housing stock over the years, we've got to look towards building for our aging population, of course, but then also we'll see more people with disabilities in the workforce who's going to need housing also. So, just a thought.
Sandy, who's building senior living right now that doesn't have fully accessible units everywhere? That sounds crazy to me.
Oh my God, when the one in Red Cross went up, I could not believe it. I had a couple consumers in there, and the carpeting was so thick. I visited one person, or one family who's the mom and dad, the mom used a wheelchair, and the dad they were both like 80. And so the dad's trying to push her around in this wheelchair, his wife in the wheelchair, and this carpeting was so thick, he couldn't, you know, and then to get her in the bathroom, he couldn't get the wheelchair in the bathroom, so she's bed bathing. It has a step-in shower, which is not quite a 5 foot, I think it was like a 4 foot, but the door was skinny, it had a 5 foot lip, can't get in. There were maybe 5 accessible units in the building, but, you know, people get in there, they're not leaving unless they die. You know, I mean, that's because it's accessible. They're going to be able to age there. So, yeah.
My impression of ADA and couples, especially when they're like, that's how my folks operate, right? Like my mom is not able-bodied. My dad takes care of her, right?
Right.
Well, the ADA is set up so that you can take care of yourself. It's not necessarily set up so that somebody can help you. And it makes for bigger turning spaces and those sort of allowances that it kind of, some of it comes by default, but not all of it. And it's an umbrella building code that kind of works most of the time. You know.
Correct. The ADA is general, where if you're building for an aging population, you can be more specific, and that would go under fair housing. It wouldn't necessarily go ADA.
Right.
The ADA really doesn't look at congregate housing.
Yeah, well, it also...
That's fair housing, yeah, but it does have good, and you're right, the turning radiuses, all of that. But even if you can get a T-turn in the bathroom, it's good, or a back in and back out. But if the door's not even wide enough to get in with the chair, you're done there. And then if you do a barrier-free shower, that opens up space, you know, for more area versus having a little 3 foot wide door. Sometimes it's 28 inches door that a person's trying to get through with a 5 foot lip. So those are the things when you look at it, designing them appropriately. And there have been places that have done that. It's really, Steve, in the design. You know, you can design.
I'm
yeah.
aware, right?
Yeah.
Sandy, does Options provide consulting services?
Oh, we've always done. Years and years and years ago, we used to sit on a lot of contractors or developers would come in and we'd sit with them and look through their plans. We haven't had that in a really long time.
So we could refer them to options to go.
Yeah, like if we want to make,
suggestions.
yeah, if we have 100 units and we want to make all of them accessible, at least, visitable, but we want 50 of them to have barrier-free showers. How do we do this? What space do we lose, or what space can we keep, and all that kind of stuff. So, and now the barrier-free showers, many of them you just place on top of the floor versus cutting in. So you don't. There's so many new configurations. There's showers that have a dam height that's removable. So you just come out, and then there's a rubber dam threshold that you can just even step on, versus having no threshold, because the barrier-free ones will have just a very minimal threshold, a quarter of an inch to a half an inch max, and that's just going to be a slant. It's not going to be an up and down. So
Everything else.
Okay, sounds good.
yeah, and it's truly the bathroom. I think bathroom and carpeting. I think most people can get around most of the new housing now. It's just those limitations, getting into that bathroom and getting around feasibly on that thick carpeting we all love our grandkids to play on. But we can't walk on if we have a walking disability or use our walker, or we can't get pushed if we're in a wheelchair. So.
Right.
Yeah, plus it's gross. There's COVID there.
Yeah. Are you one of those? Are you one of those that sprays your carpet with Lysol?
I have hardwood floors.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I'd be ripping out my carpets if I had hardwood floors underneath.
Cheryl, can I suggest that because of the extensive nature of this study, and I think we need more time to review, but can we put this back on the agenda for the next board meeting as well? So, take some time over the next month for all of us to review this study a little more carefully, and then if we have any more questions, we can discuss it again.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, I didn't get all the way down to the bottom, Cheryl, but I did get almost through the part, like from the beginning to the disability information and the aging population. I just had to stop there, so. Not because, I just had other things I had to do, so. That's as far as I got, so.
Anybody else have any questions on this as we move forward and look at approval of this?
Yeah, she said it was interesting information.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve?
Oh, you have to approve it? Yeah, so second.
All right.
I'm sorry, what are we approving?
Yeah, what are we looking at approving, Bill?
Oh, it's the housing study itself, I guess. You don't really have to approve it. I put it with consideration with possible action on the approval of the housing.
Oh, gotcha.
So the RDA has approved it. I think the council might have approved it. I think you probably shouldn't approve it till we've gone through it. So maybe this motion should be to hold until the next meeting.
All right. So I'll make that motion to hold this until the next meeting for further evaluation.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to item E2, consideration of possible action regarding flat rents and utility allowances effective January 1, 2021.
So that is in your packet. HUD just published the new proposed flat rate rents in October for 2021. In the little square thing, you can see that last year the rent actually decreased, so we did not increase any of our flat rate rents. Then I should have the percentage of what it changed from 2019 to 2021. We cannot have our flat rate rents below 80% of the fair market rents. So just doing some base calculation on what they were to what they are now, you'll see the new proposed flat rate rents. Last year, the utility allowances that we always use from Brown County did not change either. They did minorly change this year. For a 2-bedroom, they increased $7. For a 3-bedroom, they increased $7. And then for a 4-bedroom, they increased $10. So that is reflected in the flat rate rents and the utility allowances, how we calculate rent. So the yellow is the yellow bar, approved new flat rate rent, is what we are proposing to be comparable and affordable within the Brown County and the payment standards. So we are just looking for an approval for that.
Right. Is there a motion to approve or any questions?
Motion to approve.
Good job, Jamie. I'll second.
I have a motion
A
and,
lot of calculations, but we got it.
all right. Got a motion and a second. Any further questions? Otherwise, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Very good. Moving on to informational, the GBHA bills.
All right, so those are in the packet. Are there any questions for me on anything?
Is there anything that stands out to you?
Not that I saw. Quick go through. We had our Baker Tilly invoice for the work that they've been doing, so that did come through. But we knew that that would come. So otherwise, no. There really isn't much else going on. Just our normal stuff.
So, okay.
Same fun, same excitement.
So do we need a motion to approve, Bill?
No.
Okay, just place it down.
Yep. All right, so then we'll move on to GBHA financial report. Stephanie.
Yep, that was also in your packet. Kind of going back and forth here, so just a second. Are there any questions that anyone has?
No.
No? We're just kind of starting out because it's November. We're almost halfway. Seems strange that we're almost halfway through our year already.
I know, you started July 1st. I know, it's gone fast.
I want to digress more and talk about that because it's driving.
But things are just going along now.
Focus, Steve.
I know, thank you, sorry. I'm just gonna,
All right, any questions? All right. And moving on to the
Langen report.
Any questions on the Langen report? All right. Then Cheryl, your turn. Director's report.
All right. Well, I believe we may have filled the custodian 2 position. We've tendered an offer. They're in backgrounds now, so hopefully we'll have that person coming on board early December. We tendered an offer for building maintenance, and that was turned down. I think there's a second offer that's being made to our second candidate. Not sure. I don't know if the odds aren't good. This person's gonna take it. Not happy with being on call. Right now, our positions are on call every other week, or so that's been an issue for some of the candidates. So, we may have to go back out for the building maintenance position. So at least we've got maybe one coming in, which will be good.
Are they on call then if there's only one every weekend?
Until we find, Jamie's been stepping up. Jamie's been building, custodian, housing administrator. So she's feeling my pain. Director, assistant director, real estate. So yeah, I think luckily I don't think things have been too crazy. Other than a grease fire here and there.
And 2 floods.
And 2 floods.
and those things are like the Bible has that sort of crap in it. What do you mean not too crazy?
Yeah, that's true.
So, Cheryl, is there a way to hire out a weekend versus having, if that's been a barrier to getting somebody on board, can we hire out for a weekend on call and just have the 2 custodians during the week? Has that even been raised, or?
Well, actually, we met about that, Sandy, this week already. Stephanie, Jamie, and I got together to see what we could do with that on call. It's really not in our budget to have that extra service. And looking at it, I had the ladies run some numbers, really, with the exception of snow, in the past 18 months, there's only been 12 instances of someone having to go out on a night or a weekend. Otherwise, some of this stuff happens during the day, of course, right? So it's really not that much. I think it's just the candidates that we are getting want to make a transition from like the big job where I'm managing a gajillion units, right?
Sure.
I'm doing quality of life. So I'm already on call like half of the month here. I don't want to do it here.
Right, sure.
I mean, I think it's a matter of just going out and trying to find another candidate. What we did do though is we hired Lizer to do our snow removal for the parking lot.
Right.
And that we don't have anybody to do snow removal, so we've got them under contract to plow the parking lot, and then hopefully our new guy will be on to do the sidewalks and the salting. So
Okay.
that was my main concern with winter. And so of course as we're talking about it, it's snowing, and I'm like, no, we can't have snow yet until December. So hopefully if our new guy gets on, he can help out with the snow removal. So.
I mean, you say not in the budget, but it's hardly in the budget to have Jamie do it either. I mean,
Right.
Budgets are budgets. What, if it's, no offense, Stephanie. I mean, if that's why we're not filling this position, then we need to look at the budget, not look at the position, right? I mean, I'm just.
Did we look at what it would cost for weekend on call?
I mean, it's one of those things, do you hire a firm to do your weekends?
I don't know, that's what I was wondering.
You know, so, and as much, look, Steve, I use that all the time with Stephanie, right? That's, I'm like, what? But it is a budget issue if we don't have the capacity
Sure.
to hire that extra expense.
You're saying that we so rarely call on it anyway, that it's a per use thing, then it's actually not really an issue, right? I mean.
Right, and I guess that's why we're looking, we have the second offer out there. If that person doesn't accept that, like, we'll go back out again. I think maybe we'll make it a little bit more clear on what that on-call is. The problem is that when you're on call, you're holding the phone. You're on call, you're not traveling. You lose your freedom for whatever.
Right, for a weekend or a week or whatever.
Right. So we are talking about that, and one of the things, and we told one candidate we were working with is we'd consider looking at different ways to get that coverage on nights and weekends. Once you're in the job, you get a better understanding of what that might mean, right? Because is it an answering service? They still have to call somebody, so you're still calling a third party to do repairs on buildings that you already know maybe what the issue is. It's not. And how much is that going to cost us? Right now, we have a person that we have under contract to help us out, I think 2 days a week in case of those emergencies, right? And
Just helping maintain work orders.
it's not cheap. Right.
Okay.
So I will look, let me tell you that, I will come to the board and look for those additional costs if we need to do that.
Okay.
If we can't find somebody.
Thanks,
I'm
Cheryl.
open to that.
Yeah, I'm just saying if that's the deal breaker, let's explore.
Yep. No, that's exactly what I said. That's why I'm like, wait, okay, we have to find some money. And then we just continue to work with Baker Tilly on our options. Section 18 application, I think, was submitted. We're waiting for HUD on that one. We don't have anything else to do. Correct, Jamie?
It's
Section 18?
It's not been officially submitted, but they're still working on it, so yeah.
We submitted it.
We've given it to our local people, they're reviewing.
Right.
Before it can
We're
be
done. There's nothing more we can do at this point till we hear
Right.
back from them.
Okay.
That was my point to be made. And then we're continuing to look at what our options are for Mason Manor. We haven't had a lot of time to jump into it because we're trying to fill these positions and cover them at this point. So, but if anybody knows of any big foundations that want to give us a lot of money, we can apply to, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll just continue working on to see what options we have for refinancing or repositioning Mason Manor.
Thanks, Cheryl.
That's all I have. That's probably enough, right?
All right. Item number 5, occupancy report for the month of November.
That is also in your packet. So of course, October 1st, November 1st, we got hit pretty hard with a lot of vacancies. Like Cheryl mentioned, we did sub some of our work orders and unit turnarounds to an individual that has rental experience. So he's been really helping us out. And our custodian one, Tom Caters, has been significantly stepping up. And we also do have a few employees at Mason Manor that live here and work for us each week, and they've been helping out, just taking the garbage out, because that was typically Tom's job, or just stepping up and asking for more, what they can do to help us out. So they have been greatly appreciated, but we are doing our best working with some our contractors. Yeah, so we've been doing our best working with our contractors and getting the units turned as quickly and fastly as possible, so.
Again, good job for a small staff. Got a lot on your plate. Yep.
All right. Any other questions for Jamie? All right.
I have just a statement, Bill, because Carol's already yelling at me. I'm even about to stay focused. Does anybody else love how positive Sandy is all the time? All the time. It's good. Yeah. Sandy, I need you to come to the studio and be just great job, interns, or whatever.
We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. You're great. Pat me on the back.
All right, so it looks like our next meeting is December 17th. Anything else for the good of the order here before we close things up? Cheryl, or Jamie, or anybody, how are we doing on COVID?
I was going to ask that. Was any of that have to do with some of the vacancies in October and November? People
I don't think the vacancies had anything to do with COVID or COVID-related items. I think every month it seems that we get 2 to 4 new individuals that have COVID-19. They, in our monthly newsletter and just being very open with our tenants, they're very good about telling us, especially in some of our scattered sites, we could have been, in contact with COVID. So I understand that this work order can wait 2 or 3 weeks, or they'll tell us right away when they get their negative test, but still give us a week to let that go. So they're very open and they're very honest with us that we've found, but I would say just every month we get 2 to 4 at least more new tenants that are diagnosed.
Okay. Well,
And no one's been significantly hospitalized, so that's a positive.
Okay, that is good. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we wrap it up?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Good to see y'all.
I'll make a motion to
Stay safe. All right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
And we have a second. With a smile. All right. Of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
All right, bye, y'all.